Siamo arrivati al otto, O-T-T-O, otto, number 8, otto. Creation of the modern vision, and this is what we want to really spend the rest of tonight on, Brunelleschi, just exactly the way we have seen a whole list of things that have changed the society of human beings between 13 and 14, so too the artist, Brunelleschi, and his friends, Donatello and Masaccio, were going to create a new vision. Now, when society changes, when culture changes, artists respond to that and give us a new vision, a new way of seeing things. And there are huge changes in the history of the way we see things in various times. There's a Greek vision, then there's a whole new Roman vision, then Rome collapses, and we have 600, 700, 800 with almost no art of any kind. Then around 1000 begins a new vision, and then 1300 we have Dante and the Gothic Cathedral, and now 1400 we have something completely new that will be created more than anybody else by Brunelleschi, Filippo Brunelleschi, and we're going to talk about that right now. But let me just put up a summary of the things we've just talked about: creation of modern state, creation of modern diplomatic system, creation of modern army, modern tax system, vernacular literature, secular culture, modern religion, and the modern vision, all of which leads us to Florence in 1400. All of this leads us to Florence in 1400 and reminds us of the connection between Petrarch and Brunelleschi, 1377 to 1446, and to this man who is now going to help explain the Renaissance and Florence's role in it, and Brunelleschi's role, and how exactly the artistic revolution reflects all those other things we just talked about. The artistic revolution will be a reflection of all those social changes that we just talked about. Here's our picture of Filippo Brunelleschi that's inside the cathedral, which he helped build. And here's just a picture of his neighborhood. We're down in the streets looking up at his great dome, which he built. This is just the neighborhood where he grew up. Of course, the dome wasn't there when he grew up. When he grew up, he was looking up at the wall of the cathedral, and then the dome wasn't there. It was just empty. The hole was open. When it rained, everybody says to me, what happened when it rained? Well, you know what happens when it rains and there's a big hole in the house? If you've got a hole in your house, you know. You get wet, exactly, or you move out of the hole. And so the water just came through. So that's here's his street where he lived. It's a wonderful picture. I love that picture because there, look up at the end of the street is the great, huge, looming cathedral. That was, of course, there, but the dome wasn't on top. Here he is in school. This is a little Renaissance school where the schoolmaster is trained. He had a good education, came from a fine family. His father was a lawyer. So, middle class, upper middle class family, had a good education. His father wanted him to be a lawyer maybe, and instead he wanted to go into the arts. So in order to do that, he joined this guild in Florence, the Arte della Seta, the silk makers guild, which also included the gold work, and that was the thing he really wanted to study. Florence was a great center of gold work, meaning bronze and bronze sculpture and creating figures and creating portraits, and then you would put the bronze and the gold over it. So he's already learning how to do all that, and he's a master by 1398. So he's, 20 years old when he graduates from the Silk Guild, and just when he comes out of the Silk Guild and has his master's degree, Florence was offering a competition for the baptistry doors. So in this picture, we're looking at the south side of the baptistry. The new doors were going to be on the north side, and those doors were just plain. And the city of Florence wanted some sculptor to take on the job of making bronze plaques with sculpted and then covered with gold. So they would be a beautiful sculpted vision of stories from the Old and the New Testament. So Brunelleschi entered the competition. So he would have been 23. And here are the competition panels, the famous competition panels. This is more than anything else the signal of the Renaissance. If somebody asks you when did the Renaissance begin, you say with the competition for the baptistry doors in Florence, 1401. Because the whole city was involved, the guild that was going to pay for it was involved, councils were involved, a whole lot of people voted on what they wanted, and the two final plaques that were put forward in the sacrifice of Abraham and Isaac is Brunelleschi's on the left and Ghiberti's on the right. And you can all look up there and tell me which one you like better. Brunelleschi knew he liked the one on the left better. But the jury decided that they liked the one on the right better. And so Ghiberti won with the competition. How many think that Ghiberti really should have won? How many here are in agreement with the jury? Well, about half the room. About half the room. At home, you can go back and look at these. The competition panels now are in the Florentine Sculpture Museum called the Bargello in Florence. And you can go and stand right in front of them and see them on the wall next to each other. So since he lost the competition, he was angry about sculpture and his future. So he and his good friend Donatello, who was also a sculptor, decided to go to Rome. And this is another mark of the Renaissance. Here's another key event in the unfolding of the Renaissance. You have the competition in 1401. Now, in the next couple of years, this artist and his friend Donatello say, we will go to Rome. We're going to go to Rome. Why were they going to go to Rome? Because they wanted to study Roman art. They wanted to go to Rome and study Roman art, and so they did. They went to Rome. They studied Roman art. They measured buildings. They excavated buildings. They copied designs on the buildings. They looked for books about Roman art and architecture. And then they came back to Florence with all their information and were shocked to see all these American tourists. And came back, and now Brunelleschi began to develop his ideas about perspective. Now, here is the door of the cathedral. We're looking from the cathedral out the door and across to the baptistry. This is right where Brunelleschi showed his theories to his friends, standing in this doorway. And if I put up this picture, you can see the doorway of the cathedral on the left. You can see the baptistry through the opening. And there over on the right is a little drawing of how he showed his new theories of perspective to his friends. Now, this is just a little demonstration. What he had worked out was an idea about how an artist could prepare his canvas or his wall ahead of time in a way so that he could put figures and houses and roads and buildings and doggies and horses in his painting and arrange all the objects in the painting in a way so that when you looked at the painting, you would believe you were looking through a window. You would believe that you were seeing things closer to you and further away. He had developed a scientific way to do this, not just an intuition. Other people had tried into it. Now he had a scientific way. This is the modern time. This is the beginning of modern vision. So here he is in the door of the cathedral looking across the baptistry, and he has his friend come to the door and he says, all right, take my painting in your right hand and hold it up, and it has a hole through it. And look through the hole over to the baptistry. Now, take a mirror in your left hand and put the mirror up in front of the painting. Then take it down. Put it up, take it down. What do you see? Well, the friend is going to say, well, when I look through the hole, I see the baptistry, and when I put up the mirror, it looks exactly the same. And he's going to say to his friend, how did you do that? In other words, how are you able to paint a painting of the baptistry wall with its horizontals and verticals in a way so that I could believe it's exactly the same, that it's the actual building? How could you be so exact? What method, what trick did you use to be able to do this? I can't believe that you're able to do this. And so then he would say, well, let me explain. There's another illustration of the same thing. There's his friend holding up the little thing, taking it down, putting it up, holding it down, and looking across to the baptistry. So the test is going on right here, looking at the baptistry. How did he do it? Well, this is it. This is the invention of linear perspective. This is Brunelleschi, Filippo Brunelleschi, roughly 1420, inventing linear perspective in Florence after he's been to Rome, after he's studied in Florence, after he's looked at other buildings. Here he is back in Florence, and he's inventing a new system of linear perspective. And you can see on the screen how it works. So on the right side of the screen is a painting. Let's say it's a rectangular painting like we have there on the screen. And you put a human figure in, and then you draw a line A right across the head of the human figure. So everything is based on the size of the human being in relation to your painting. So it's all human-based. It's all, in a sense, humanism. It's the celebration of human beings. And then you subdivide your painting from letter C back to the baseline. And in order to do that, you have a second graph over on the left side. I'm not going to get into how you do that, but it's all spelled out. He tells you exactly how to do it. And you draw these cross lines that intersect the perpendicular lines, and they give you a graph of the space. And with that graph, you can know exactly where to put every single set of feet, or every single horse, or every single cow, or every single animal. Anything you want, you can put it into your painting at exactly the right place, and you can prove to your viewer that he's looking through a window and he is seeing a real scene in which every person, every table, every chair, every window recedes away from you the way it would in a real room. In other words, the way your eye would see it looking through a window. And here's the end result. 100 years later, 1498, here is the end result. A room in which all the parallel lines recede. Through the windows we see far distant mountains. All the human beings in the room are related one to the other. The table across the space, the windows on the sides, the roof in the top, the floor on the bottom. Every single detail is related one to the other in a perfect Euclidean geometry, a kind of Euclidean geometrical perfection. And that was exactly what Brunelleschi wanted to do. We can look at the perspective drawing, which Leonardo did. So Leonardo, by 1498, of course, knows all these things. So they're all there and they're all in place by 1498. And so when he does his painting, there he is in that room, making a mark that will be the center, using strings to lay out the lines that he will use, and then subdividing his entire painting so that it convinces you of the space. All of that is Brunelleschi's achievement. That is the creation of 15th century Florentines led by Filippo Brunelleschi to allow the modern person, the modern eye, to see things from his or her point of view. In other words, the Brunelleschian revolution is the creation of art that will allow individual human beings in the modern world to see things the way the individual human being in the modern world sees himself. As an individual, as a unique individual with unique rights, with protected rights, with the ability to write books, read books, own paintings, make paintings, do portraits, all those things, they all lead from here, from Brunelleschi in 1400.